experts to help us analyze and go through all the trading data so we could reconstruct for the public to see what was happening every second in the marketplace when the Dow dropped 900 points or 500 points in just the matter of a few minutes. It's responding to emergencies is one of the things I do worry about, and that's where we lose flexibility if we don't have a sufficient appropriation.
Right. Thank you very much. On that note, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with that, I recognize Mr. Mack of Florida for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I also want to thank the panel for being here today and give us an opportunity to get your insights and ask a few questions on a very serious topic. And I would like to start with Chairman Shapiro, if I might. Do you feel, as Chair of the agency, that it ultimately is your responsibility to ensure that all of the employees are acting in accordance with SEC employee conduct standards?
I have responsibility for the agency in that sense. I cannot tell you that with 3,800 employees I can take individual responsibility for each and every one to ensure that they're following the requirements the way they should be.
But it is ultimately, it's your responsibility as the Chair of the SEC.
Ultimately, I am responsible for the agency's conduct.
If I could direct your attention to slide number 4, Chairman Shapiro, are you familiar with the rule that's being presented on the screen?
Yes.
Well, after reading through my material and hearing your testimony, it seems to me that you weren't completely knowledgeable of this rule at the time you hired David Becker. So please allow me to read it so everyone in the room can understand the entire rule. The Securities and Exchange Commission has been entrusted by Congress with the protection of the public interest in a highly significant area of our national economy. In view of the effect which Commission action frequently has on the general public, it is important that members, employees, and special government employees maintain unusually high standards of honesty, integrity, impartiality, and conduct. They must be constantly aware of the need to avoid situations which might result either in actual or apparent misconduct or conflicts of interest, and to conduct themselves in the official relationships in a manner which commands the respect and confidence of their fellow citizens. Chairman Shapiro, were you familiar with this rule at the time that you received David Becker as your General Counsel?
I can't tell you whether I had read it. I've been in and out of government most of my career, so I'm generally aware of the ethics rules. But I will tell you that this is
well, hold on. I'm sorry, because I only have a little bit of time. A moment ago you said you were familiar with the rule.
Well, I am, but you just asked me was I aware of it at the time that David Becker arrived at the Commission, and I'm just telling you I can't recall whether I had reread the rule recently at that point or not. But
throughout your time in the 80s and the 90s, and this is
yes,
you're familiar with this rule.
I'm
okay.
generally aware of the ethics rules,
okay.
And that it is each employee's obligation.
And regarding David Becker's work with the Madoff case, do you believe that Mr. Becker was sufficiently aware of the need to avoid actual or apparent conflicts of interest?
I believe that I want to be very careful. I believe he did what he thought was appropriate and what was required of him, going to the Ethics Council and seeking advice, getting that advice and following it. Do I wish now that he had been more sensitive to the potential for this issue to raise an appearance of a conflict? Yes, I wish that had happened.
All right, just a few more questions. Do you think that you are sufficiently aware of the need to avoid actual or apparent conflicts of interest?
On my part, yes, I believe I am.
Okay, quickly, you've said now a couple times, I think, that you wish that Mr. Becker would have recused himself. Is that because of the fallout, or do you really believe he should have recused himself?
I believe that, as I said, at the time, from my perspective, a closed account from a long-since deceased relative, it didn't appear to me to raise a conflict of interest. But I believe now, knowing what we know now, not because of the fallout, though that's very real, but because if we could connect the dots and look ahead and see what all the steps would have been, that yes, it would have been appropriate to have recused.
Let me say this, and also I heard you say earlier that you kind of referred to the budget as kind of the reasons why some of these mistakes happened. How much does it cost to follow that rule?
That's a personal initiative. It doesn't really cost anything.
So the argument about the budget is, as it pertains to this rule, doesn't hold water.
And let me be clear.
So the argument about the budget that you, in your opening statement that you talked about, really doesn't pertain to this rule.
No, and I didn't mean to suggest in any way that it did.
Thank you.
Gentleman's time has expired. And with that, I recognize